Once upon a time, in a land that was divided by walls of prejudice and hatred, there arose a man whose voice rang with the power of hope, courage, and justice. His name was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and his words would change the world. On a quiet day in January, a great celebration was born, one that would be felt not only across the land, but across the hearts of millions. It was a day of remembrance, a day of reflection, and a day of action. It was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. But how did this day come to be, and why did it matter? The story begins decades before, in a time when the sun had barely risen over the struggles of equality. In this time, many voices were silenced, voices of Black Americans who sought only to be treated with dignity, to be seen as equals under the law and in the eyes of society. These voices were stifled by laws that kept them apart, by systems that denied them access to the simplest freedoms, and by hatred that burned like a fierce wind. Yet amid this darkness, a voice emerged. It was a calm and a steady voice, but it had the power to move mountains. Dr. King, a preacher and a leader, inspired others with his dream, a dream where people would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. He spoke not with violence, but with peace. He marched not with anger, but with love. He didn't see differences. He saw shared humanity. His words were like seeds planted in fertile soil, taking root in the hearts of those who long for change. He knew that change would not come overnight, but he also knew that it was possible. And so he marched forward, leading others in marches and protests, demanding justice, equality, and respect for all. One of the most famous marches, the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom in 1963, saw Dr. King stand before a crowd of more than 250,000 people. It was there, on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, that he delivered his "I Have a Dream" speech, a speech that echoed through history, reverberating in the hearts of those who listened and those who would listen for generations to come. For years, Dr. King's voice and actions would continue to resonate, challenging the very foundation of segregation and inequality in America. But it wasn't without struggle. It wasn't without pain. Dr. King faced hatred, violence, and even death threats, yet he remained unwavering in his belief in nonviolence and love. On April 4th, 1968, Dr. King was taken from this world, his life cut short by an assassin's bullet. But his legacy would live on, not just in the hearts of those who loved him, but in the laws that were changed, in the bridges built across divides, and in the hope he had instilled in a generation. The journey, though, was far from over. And so, in recognition of his life and work, the country decided to honor him with a day dedicated to his memory, a day to remember the struggles for justice, to renew the commitment to equality, and to strive to continue the work that he had begun. This day, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, became more than just a day to remember a man. It became a call to action. Schools, communities, and individuals would come together on this day to serve others, to build understanding, and to strive toward the dream that Dr. King had so eloquently shared with the world. For on this day, the message was clear. We are all part of the same human family, and it is in our togetherness that we will find true freedom. It is through our actions that we will build the beloved community Dr. King envisioned, a world where every person is treated with dignity, love, and respect. And so, each year, as the calendar turns to January 15th, people pause to remember, reflect, and renew. They gather in service to one another, just as Dr. King had asked. They march, they speak out, they teach, and they learn. And above all, they continue the journey, a journey that leads to a brighter, more just world for all. For the dream lives on.